Let's look at another group of drugs commonly prescribed alongside hypoglycemic medications. These drugs are called statins, or cholesterol-lowering drugs. Earlier, we discussed that individuals who have type 2 diabetes have a 2 to 4 times increased risk of having a heart attack or a stroke when compared to normal healthy individuals. Elevated LDL cholesterol levels have long been cited as a major cause of cardiovascular accidents like heart attacks or strokes. Just hold that thought for a moment. We will come back shortly. For this reason, statins are commonly prescribed alongside hypoglycemic medication. In fact, the guidelines by both the American Diabetes Association, or ADA, in the US, and the National Institute for Healthcare and Excellence, or NICE, in the UK, recommend the use of statins in individuals who have type 2 diabetes. LDL cholesterol, or low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, has been dubbed as bad cholesterol, while its counterpart, HDL cholesterol, or high-density lipoprotein cholesterol, has been dubbed as the good cholesterol. At some point, you may have been told by your doctor, your cholesterol levels are high, especially the bad one. You need to lower them. Guilty as charged. I used to say something similar to this when I was still doing conventional medical practice. Unfortunately, many health professionals, articles, and blogs, both locally and internationally, continue to propagate this idea. If you stay with me a little longer, I will debunk this myth. So how did we get here? The idea that elevated blood cholesterol levels, particularly LDL cholesterol, are harmful was first proposed by a Russian pathologist, Nikolai Anichkov, in 1913. His conclusion was based on studies conducted in rabbits, giving rise to what is now known as the cholesterol hypothesis. However, it's important to note that this was merely a hypothesis, as it had not yet been proven through high-level clinical studies such as systematic reviews, meta-analyses, or randomized controlled clinical trials. The cholesterol hypothesis continued to be popularized in the mid-1900s by an American physiologist called Ansel Keys. He implicated saturated fat as the source of cholesterol and the main cause of heart disease. Again, this research was based on observational and epidemiological studies, not higher level and more trusted ones like systematic reviews, meta-analyses, or randomized controlled trials. This hypothesis rose to arguably maximum significance in September 1955, when the 34th President of the United States, Dwight D. Eisenhower, suffered the first of a series of heart attacks and strokes. He eventually died of congestive heart failure in March 1969. This raised even more awareness of cardiovascular disease and led to changes in 1. Healthcare. Guidelines condemning total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol as causative for cardiovascular disease were developed. 2. Agriculture. There was a reduction in the production and consumption of animal fats and a corresponding increase in the production and consumption of plant-based oils. And 3. The pharmaceutical industry. By the 1980s, the development and distribution of cholesterol-lowering drugs, or statins, had begun. There is no doubt that the health challenges of the late President Eisenhower shaped the landscape of the management of cardiovascular disease. The problem is that the proponents of the cholesterol hypothesis conveniently or ignorantly missed the fact that President Eisenhower was a chronic avid smoker. It's reported that he smoked 10 to 20 cigarettes a day during much of his life. This was a grave omission, as we now know better. So what caused President Eisenhower's heart attacks? Let's consider the possibilities. 1. Smoking. 2. High total cholesterol levels. And 3. High LDL cholesterol levels. Well, what does the research say? A cohort study, the Women's Health Study, published in 2021, explored the link between various risk factors and the age of onset for coronary heart disease, that is, narrowing and thickening of the heart's blood vessels, which can lead to a heart attack, in women. Now, you might be thinking, this study was done on women. I'm a man. It does not apply to me. Are you really going to bet on that? Come on, the data is consistent for men as well. Let's break down the findings. The table highlights several risk factors and their associated percentage risk for coronary heart disease. As you can see, being a current smoker outweighs both total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol as a risk factor, regardless of age. For example, in individuals under 55 years of age, being a current smoker increases the risk of developing coronary heart disease by 292%, whereas having high total cholesterol increases the risk by only 39%. When you consider other common risk factors like diabetes, hypertension, and obesity, they prove to be even more significant than smoking. Look at this. Having diabetes increases your risk of a heart attack by 971%. As for the lipid profile, that is, blood levels of cholesterol and triglycerides, the ratio of triglycerides to HDL cholesterol, along with triglycerides themselves, are far more important risk factors for heart disease than LDL cholesterol or total cholesterol. Even having a BMI between 25.0 and 29.9, that is, being overweight, not even obese yet, presents a greater risk for a heart attack than high LDL cholesterol or high total cholesterol levels on their own. Yes, instead of obsessing over your LDL cholesterol levels, focusing on losing weight the right way will have a more significant impact on your heart health. Now, you might be thinking, that was just a cohort study. It's decent, but it's not really the best evidence. Well, consider this. A systematic review, one of the gold standards for research methods, published in May 2016, looked at the relationship between LDL cholesterol and mortality, or death, from all causes, including heart attacks, other diseases, accidents, etc. It concluded that high LDL cholesterol is actually inversely associated with mortality. Put in plain English, this means that higher LDL cholesterol is linked to increased longevity, longer life. This contradicts the cholesterol hypothesis that LDL cholesterol causes heart attacks and strokes. I hope this clears up the whole LDL cholesterol is bad myth. We need to put this to bed. Cholesterol is absolutely essential for life. Without it, you would literally die. Here are a few of its essential roles. 1. It forms the membranes of your body's cells. 2. It's crucial for nerve and brain tissue formation. 3. It's a building block of all your body's hormones, including insulin. And 4. It's an important part of lipid rafts in your cell membranes, which are key to insulin signaling. I could go on and on. Fighting LDL cholesterol is not the answer. In fact, it could be harming your health or even putting you at risk of a heart attack or stroke. Would it be a problem if I shared a client story with you? Thank you. 2 years ago, I had an encounter with a gentleman in his 50s. He wasn't your typical 50-year-old. He was lean, no noticeable belly fat, and seemingly in great shape, with no history of metabolic issues. But he shared a rather alarming story with me. One bright and sunny morning, just as he was about to board a plane from the UK to Uganda, something unexpected happened. He blacked out. The next thing he knew, he was being gently revived by an air hostess and a lady who turned out to be a cardiologist based in Uganda. After regaining his senses, he valiantly insisted on continuing with his journey. The cardiologist offered to see him at a clinic in Kampala, the capital city, and he readily accepted. When he finally made it to Kampala, he saw her and then came to me for a checkup. I ran a full body composition assessment and ordered some lab tests. What we discovered was eye-opening. Let me walk you through what we found. He weighed 85 kilos with a BMI of 27. Not terrible, just slightly above the upper limit of 24.9. His body fat percentage was 23.5%, only 3.5% higher than ideal, so nothing too concerning for his age. His visceral fat, however, was 10. Normal should be less than 10. Remember, visceral fat is a major contributor to inflammation and insulin resistance. His muscle percentage was 34.7%. I normally aim for a bare minimum of 35% for my male clients. His metabolic age was 60. Given that his actual age was 58, that wasn't bad. The ideal would be that his metabolic age was equal or less than his actual age. His systolic blood pressure was 131, which was high. Normal should be less than 120. His diastolic blood pressure and heart rate were fine. Other physical exams were fine. Now, let's dive into the labs. Though his fasting blood glucose was normal, his HbA1c, an estimate of his blood sugar control over the past 3 months, was elevated at 5.9%. The normal should be less than 5.7%. His C-reactive protein, which measures inflammation, was normal. Now, regarding his cholesterol readings, both his total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol fell within the recommended normal laboratory ranges. However, as we've discussed, these numbers don't tell the whole story when assessing the risk of a heart attack or stroke. Regarding the most significant parameters for a heart attack or stroke, 1. His HDL cholesterol was very low, more than 3 times the minimum required level. 2. His triglycerides were high. And 3. His triglyceride to HDL cholesterol ratio was significantly elevated, close to 3 times the upper border of normal. Also, his kidney function was slightly impaired, which can happen when blood pressure, blood glucose, cholesterol, and triglyceride levels aren't in check. In summary, his metabolic issues were 1. Overweight, 2. Elevated visceral fat, 3. Stage 1 hypertension, 4. Prediabetes, 5. Dyslipidemia, which is abnormal levels of cholesterol and triglycerides, and 6. Chronic kidney disease, stage 2. So what caused his blackout? It's possible that the blackout was a transient ischemic attack, or in short, TIA, also known as a mini stroke. Unlike a full stroke, TIAs cause temporary symptoms that resolve quickly, typically within 24 hours, with no lasting brain damage. The unsettling thing was that he looked healthy at first glance and had no idea he was living with chronic health conditions. Had we not crossed paths, it's likely his health would have continued to decline, God forbid, until a fateful end. The key takeaway is this: stop obsessing over your LDL cholesterol reading. High LDL cholesterol, coupled with low triglycerides, high HDL cholesterol, and low triglyceride to HDL cholesterol ratios, is actually good for health and longevity. On the other hand, having low total cholesterol or low LDL cholesterol, according to standard laboratory ranges, could be more harmful than you might expect. Statins have also been implicated by several high-quality research studies as a risk factor for developing type 2 diabetes. While the exact mechanism remains unclear, a link to insulin resistance has been proposed. I'll highlight a couple of these studies. Okay, quick orientation. The first column lists several studies examining the effect of statin use on the risk of type 2 diabetes, with the findings detailed in the second column. These studies range from low evidence observational studies to stronger, more reliable randomized controlled trials, or RCTs, and even the highest level of evidence, meta-analyses. Given the range of these study types, there is little room to doubt the results. In almost every study, except one, the Jupiter trial, statins were linked to a higher risk of type 2 diabetes. The findings of the Jupiter trial were interesting, so let's unpack them. Group 1. People without risk factors for diabetes, for example, obesity. Giving statins to this group prevented 86 cardiovascular events, for example, heart attacks and strokes, without causing any new cases of diabetes. But here's the real question. If you were healthy, had no risk factors for type 2 diabetes, and your blood cholesterol levels were normal, would you take a statin? I'm guessing your answer is a hard no. Mine too. Sure, if you knew you were about to have a heart attack and a statin was the only thing which could save you. Maybe then, but these people were already healthy, so why take the statin? Plus, as we've seen from high quality research, total cholesterol and LDL cholesterol, which statins are designed to lower, aren't reliable predictors of heart attacks. In fact, high LDL cholesterol with low triglycerides and a good triglyceride to HDL ratio is actually linked to longer life. But okay, let's play along. Let's assume that these people were taking the statin for research purposes. Now, on to the second group. Group 2. People with at least one risk factor for diabetes. Here, statins prevented 134 cardiovascular events, but caused 54 new cases of diabetes. The researchers then concluded that because the number of heart attacks prevented was higher than the number of new diabetes cases, the benefits outweighed the risks. Seriously? This is a shaky argument at best. Why? Because we know that 75% of diabetics over 40 will probably die from a cardiovascular event if they are not able to control their blood sugar levels. Therefore, by triggering type 2 diabetes in these people, statins could be increasing their long-term risk of developing heart disease, the very thing that the statin is supposed to be preventing on the short term. This didn't sit right with me, so I dug a little deeper into the Jupiter trial, and guess what I found? The conflict of interest section was full of red flags. The study was funded by a major pharmaceutical company, and the lead researchers had deep ties to multiple drug companies. I'll let you decide what to make of that. Beyond diabetes, statins come with a range of side effects. They cause damage to your skeletal muscle, which manifests as pain or fatigue. They also cause damage to your brain, which can manifest as memory loss or confusion. They also cause damage to your nerves, which can manifest as tingling or burning sensation in your limbs. They also cause dysfunction of your liver, which can be evidenced by elevated liver enzymes when you do your liver function tests. Statins are also associated with sexual dysfunction, so erectile dysfunction, reduced libido, and reduced testosterone levels. And then, as we said, they're associated with an increased risk of insulin resistance, which manifests in all the ways which we've already discussed. For clients who choose to work with us, statins are typically one of the first drugs that we remove from their regimen as part of our medication reduction protocol. We've had outstanding success in helping our clients lower their triglyceride levels and achieve normal cholesterol levels by adopting the right nutrition. Therefore, I'm confident that as long as they follow our guidance, they shall be fine. Like Kenneth Magembe, a 45-year-old gentleman and director of an engineering firm here in Kampala, who was battling with dyslipidemia and being overweight. By working with us, he was able to lose 7 kilograms in 6 weeks, build muscle and boost his strength, and normalize his blood cholesterol and triglyceride levels. He's been able to keep them in the right range now for 4 years and counting. Like Catherine, a 27-year-old lady who was battling with dyslipidemia. Actually, her complaint at the time we met was that her hands turned blue all of a sudden. By working with us, she was able to normalize her cholesterol and triglyceride levels and lose about 4 kilograms, which to her was a bonus.